When we face deep betrayal or sudden, seemingly pointless trauma, a singular instinctual question always echoes in our minds. Where is God in this? The patriarch Jacob has died. Here in Egypt's highest throne room, Joseph's brothers bow before him in sheer terror. They expect execution for what they did decades earlier. Joseph has every right to demand full, violent vengeance. But instead of ordering their execution, Joseph breaks down. He weeps. He looks at the men who ruined his youth and tells them, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." That single sentence forces us to grapple with a profound mystery. How can a genuinely malicious human action serve as the exact instrument God uses for salvation? To understand the weight of that forgiveness, we have to look at the raw family dysfunction where this trauma started. Back in the land of Canaan, Jacob showed overt, observable favoritism toward his teenage son Joseph. He even gave him this highly visible, long-sleeved robe of many colors, a public declaration of his special status. Into that already toxic environment, God sent a revelation. Joseph had prophetic dreams, visions of wheat sheaves and celestial bodies, like these stars, bowing down to him. When he shared these dreams, it acted as a total accelerant. The brothers' jealousy hardened into intense, active hatred. When they finally grabbed him and sold him to passing slave traders for 20 pieces of silver, it was a calculated business transaction. The original Hebrew term for their action is atam hashavtam ra'ah. It means a deliberate, premeditative intention to cause harm. Acknowledging God's larger plan does not sanitize what the brothers did. They committed a horrific, malicious crime against their own flesh and blood for profit and spite. This descending timeline maps the brutal reality of that crime. Joseph was trafficked out of Canaan, sold as a slave into Potiphar's house in Egypt, falsely accused of assault, and finally abandoned in a royal dungeon. For 13 years, the cognitive dissonance must have been deafening. Every visible piece of evidence in his life pointed to a chaotic, completely unjust universe where the innocent suffer and the wicked prosper. Yet the historical record repeats a specific phrase during this dark era, Yahweh Haya Et. The Lord was with him. God did not hit pause on his plan while Joseph suffered in the dark. The text insists that divine providence was actively operating through the human sin, rather than trying to route around it. Prolonged periods of intense isolation and waiting are frequently the exact incubators required to prepare someone for what God intends to do next. The catalyst that finally forced all these threads together was an environmental collapse, a catastrophic famine that threatened to starve the entire known world. If we trace the causal chain backward on the Sklum chart, the logic becomes clear. Joseph is only positioned to interpret Pharaoh's dreams because he was in the royal prison. He was only in that specific prison because he was enslaved in Potiphar's house. And he was only in Egypt because his brothers betrayed him. Pharaoh immediately elevates Joseph to second in command of the empire, giving him the authority to gather grain and fulfill a specific divine mandate, lehakiot am rav, to preserve the lives of many people. The very betrayal the brothers weaponized to destroy Joseph's prophetic dreams was the exact mechanical sequence God used to bring those dreams to life. We return to the brothers in that throne room. When Joseph asks, "Am I in the place of God?" he reveals the specific perspective that protected his heart during those 13 years of isolation. He uses these scales of justice. Joseph doesn't pretend the abuse didn't happen, fully acknowledging their evil intent. But he refuses the seat of ultimate judge. By recognizing divine sovereignty, the burden of seeking personal revenge is lifted entirely off his shoulders. He extends radical grace and promises to provide for them. That forgiveness flows freely, not because the brothers suddenly earned it, but because Joseph fully trusts the architect who designed the larger plan. Grounding our lives in this theology does not grant us immunity from pain. Following God didn't buy Joseph a shorter trial or an easier path. We see this echoed in Jeremiah 29. God declares he has plans for our welfare, to give us a future and a hope, spoken to exiles still in Babylonian captivity. We must trust his overarching purposes, even when entirely blind to his immediate, painful permissions. The next time you find yourself facing deep injustice or a trial that seems to have no logical end, Try to adopt Joseph's perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "How might God use this for good purposes I simply cannot see yet?"